Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. How are you, hi-fi people? What do we have today? A Sony STR-6046A stereo receiver. Let's power it up. Love that sound. Love it. Clickety click, clunkety clunk. 1972 to 1974 was the manufacturing of this unit. It started in 1970, the same model, 1970, 1971, but it was an STR-6046 without the A. I'll tell you later on what's the difference in the non-A and this A version. 22 watts per channel into 8 ohms. But again, like many vintage receivers, you never underestimate these 22 watts. It's surely like a 50 watts amplifier. The quality is so good that it can easily drive 4 ohm speakers, demanding speakers, which need a lot of grunt. This bad boy can drive 4 ohm speakers very well. I'll talk about, it's a receiver, end of the day, it's a receiver, but it's got some unique features which I'll talk about. And I think we should all know why receivers are unique for a reason. Why do they have some unique features to make the receiver itself worthwhile over many other receivers, which still sound good, but this one has some extra bells and whistles. Like high-end gear, this is not a high-end piece of equipment. It sounds very good, but it's not a high-end piece of equipment. But what did Sony do in 1972? They gave you a pre-out and main-in option. This is a rare feature in low to medium end audio equipment. What was it used for? Pre-out and main-in. Most commonly, the pre-out was used to connect to a power amp. So you could bypass the built-in amplifier, the built-in 22 watts per channel amplifier. You could bypass that, and you could hook up 100 watts per channel stereo amplifier using the pre-out. I think this is a very, very unique feature that the Sony put into this machine. Well, they didn't have to. This is not a high-end device, but they gave you the option. What else can you do with the pre-out and main-in? Just talking about pre-out and main-in, it's not just to connect a power amp. But back in the analog time, there were devices like equalizers, for example, or other sound processors, noise reduction devices, subharmonic devices, impact recovery devices. These were analog devices. I'll do more videos. I've got a few to share, a few videos on what these sound processors are. But the pre-out and main-in was also commonly used back in the day, not only just to hook up a power amp. It was used to hook up an equalizer, a sound processor, like I said, noise reduction device, subharmonic device, impact recovery device, many other processors that I don't know of, but which required a tape loop. So this bad boy, this has a pre-out and a main-in with a line level signal. So it can be used to hook up a sound processor or a power amp. The speaker system, the speaker circuit system here, speaker A off, speaker B off. We know about that, but this circuit is connected in series. Unlike many receivers, Now in series, if you have one pair of speakers and you go A, you're listening to music. With one pair of speakers, if you press B, you're cutting off the sound because of the connection in series. So if you have two pairs of speakers and you have A and B engaged, you're going to listen to four speakers. Or disengage A, you're going to listen to a pair on B. Disengage B, you're going to listen to a pair on A. But you have to have the speakers connected to use this circuit. A rare feature. They thought about it. They wanted you to use these buttons with the circuit that is behind the buttons. You have one pair of speakers, you don't touch speaker B. You touch it, sound will cut off. You have two pairs of speakers, you're welcome to use speaker A and speaker B. I find that a nice feature to sort of to remind you that your speaker B is going to cut off if you have one pair in speaker A. Lovely knobs, metal, not plastic, metal. Loudness, again, what can I tell you? Vintage audio gear loudness button. It really changes the dynamics. It's not just like pumping up the volume. It's pumping up the entire frequency range. Your equalizer curve changes with just the push of this loudness button on almost every vintage audio equipment. It has a high filter next to the loudness. I'm not pointing at it because my hand is coming in the video. You don't want to see my hand. So high filter, you're running the tuner, you're running a turntable, you're running a cassette deck or any source. Sometimes you want to sort of balance out the high frequency without touching the treble knob, keeping that flat like I do. I very rarely I touch the bass and treble to get that neutral, flat, clear sound coming through the speakers. But if there is some sort of roll off in the high frequencies, you can sort of balance it with the high filter. Next to that, we have a mode buttons for stereo mono. Of course, I always keep it on stereo, and I'm sure all of you do as well. But there were recordings in mono back in the day, so it was probably a useful feature to sort of break down the two channels into mono and give you mono sound on each channel through your speakers. It also has a tape monitor, which is a very nice feature in any equipment, I would say. The tape monitor feature basically allows you to monitor your recording. If you're playing the tuner and recording on a tape, you can monitor it. If it's a 3-head deck, you can monitor it through this button, the switch that you engage. If you're recording from a turntable, from a CD player, you can monitor your recording. The knob next to that, I'll try to play around with this without my hand coming in too much, because I want to show you the function. Phono, auxiliary, FM, AM, mic, left and right mic. So you can do some karaoke, I would say, with a volume, with a nice volume. And of course the standard dial, which is also nice to look at while you're fine-tuning. Why is it so good? Why am I praising it? Why do I like it? Receiver. What is a receiver? It's a box with a tuner, with a preamp, and an amplifier. What did Sony do? The intelligent engineering they've done in this. Within this box, the preamplifier section is isolated from the amplifier section. Both the preamp and the amp is isolated from the tuner section. Now what does that do? That makes this tuner one of the best tuners I've heard. I've heard many tuners in different vintage equipment from the 70s, from the 80s, but this tuner sounds stunning. Amazing reception. You can hear the quality just because way at the back of the box is the tuner section. At the front left corner is the preamp section. And at the front right side is the power amplifier. This has sort of isolated all three functions of a receiver without any signal path interference. The electronics are sort of separated from each other, and it makes a difference. There are some high-end audio gear even built today, manufactured today, keeping in mind this isolation of electronics from the signal path. Imagine 1972, Sony went into that trouble to put their heads together and put three functions together in one box to give you the best quality possible. How much does this weigh? A whopping 10 kilograms. That's amazing. 10 kilograms for a 22 watts per channel into 8 ohms receiver means something. That weight itself is telling you that there's some quality components inside. Why does it sound so good? The amplifier output to the two channels, they have those STK power blocks. Like I mentioned in a video I did on the Sony 221, 8 watts per channel. Why does it sound so good? It's got these STK power blocks on each amplifier channel. Sony did the same in this model. No IC. Amplifier outputs are STK power blocks. Makes a hell of a difference when you compare the two. Very warm sound, deep bass, very deep. I use this with the Ditton 22s, I use the Sony 221 with the Ditton 22s, I use the Akai AA1010 with the Ditton 22s. All these three receivers are from the 70s. The Ditton 22s being from the 70s are just a perfect match. I prefer this one because it's got more grunt. It's got the STK power block amplifiers on each channel. It's got the isolated tuner and preamp and amp. It's a very good match with Ditton 22, especially after Haycross Audio. Matt from Haycross Audio has upgraded my crossover. The Ditton 22s with this type of receiver, and particularly this receiver as compared to the Sony or the Akai, it sounds fantastic. You just don't want more. Okay, why is it different to the 1970 and 1971 model? That was the STR-6046 without the A. I assume A is for advanced. That model did not have the STK power blocks. That model had your speaker A and B in parallel, not in series. That model was 20 watts. So there were three differences in the 1970 and 71 STR-6046. It did not have power blocks on the amplifier output to each channel. It had a parallel connection for your speaker A and B, and it was 20 watts. The 2 watts difference doesn't matter, but the amplifier outputs do matter. That had a standard IC output. It was a great vintage receiver, probably, but not sounding as good as this. So 2 years later, they come up with the STR-6046A in 1972. and they throw in the STK power blocks. They do the speaker A and B with a series circuit behind it, and they sort of amp it up by 2 watts. I'm just happy to have this one and not the non-A version, knowing that this is definitely sounding better. But this is what Sony did, and this is the Sony that we know of back in the day. This is not today's Sony. This is the actual Japanese engineering. Hope you liked this short video, and hope I've covered what I know about it. If there's something that I haven't mentioned about it and you guys know, please comment. We'll be happy to learn anything else I don't know about this. I've tried to explain and discuss with you what I know about it. But do let me know if you know what else this has that I don't know. Thanks a lot. Tune in to the next one shortly. And remember, vinyl is final. Bye for now.